I think it's time that we start the conversation and silence the shame.
Silence the shame.
Silence the shame. Silence is the difference between treatment or pain, life or death.
Silence the shame.
Speak up now and silence.
Silence
the shame.
Redefining manhood for mental resilience. And so first, I'd like to bring up our moderator, somebody that you all know. You've heard him on the radio for many years. He's a personality in the Atlanta area, but he also has his own story. And he was one of the first supporters of Silence the Shame when we first started doing events in the community in 2017. I can't believe we've been around since 2017, but, you know, God is good and we're keeping going. So y'all give it up for Willie Moore Jr. Next up, we have a young man who came into the Silence the Shame, I think, life earlier this year, and he's been rocking with us since day one. I'm so proud of this young man. He has so many things going on as an entrepreneur, a speaker, a wellness advocate, and just all around, just a good guy raised by good parents. And y'all got to support his brand, which is Love Yourself. And he has some merchandise on the way out. Please give it up for Marquis Hill. Y'all, Marquis just got back from the White House attending an event around mental health and wellness, right? Yep. So he'll tell y'all a little bit more about that, but he's doing incredible things. And last but not least, I've heard of this gentleman. I had the pleasure of meeting him for the last 2 years. We've been doing an event with Charlemagne the God. I know Charlemagne was supposed to be here today, but he, life happens. Life be lifing, right? But he sends his well wishes, and he's going to do something with Silence the Shame real soon. But we are so incredibly grateful that this man flew in from Dallas, Texas. He has an amazing story. He's a former NFL player turned clinician, then got his doctorate degree. And he's an entrepreneur, but more importantly, he cares about Black people in the community and their mental health. And it has a new documentary that he just did, Walking a Mile in My Shoes. And he'll tell you all about it, but he is a prolific speaker and advocate and someone that we truly value and hold in high regard in the mental health space. So y'all give it up for Dr. King J. Barnett.
Indeed. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Check 1, 2. Yes. It should.
Check 1. Yeah.
Can you guys hear me? Hey, everybody, y'all feeling good? Yes or yes? Come on, yes or yes. Let's get some energy in the room. Real quick. Listen, I'm Willie Moore Jr., the host of the Willie Moore Jr. Show. Major love to Shanti Das to literally see what God has done with her platform. I believe it really deserves another round of applause for my sister Shanti. Yeah. Come on, y'all can do better than that. Yeah. So, and let me just say, she's the only person that can get me out on a Saturday morning, praise God. That's the truth. Come on, somebody. Family, I want to give the opportunity to these amazing panelists to share a little bit more about themselves, and then we're going to dive in. How many of you all know that the biggest room in the world is the room for improvement? Right? That's the biggest room in the world. So I believe by faith that today we're going to stretch you just a little bit, and we're going to dispel the myth of toxic masculinity, and we're going to have a really, really awesome deep dive in what mental health looks like for African-American men in this climate that we in America right now, right? Like, because it's very, very unique indeed. So I'm going to start to the left of me. Introduce yourselves. Tell them a little bit more about all the things you have going on. Congratulations on going to the White House, man. Yeah.
No, I appreciate it. And it was the U.S. Department of Commerce. That was the recent event that I went to in Washington, D.C. But just to tell you all a little bit about myself, my name is Marquis Hill, better known as Real MJ Hill on all social media platforms. And I'm 18 years old. I'm a motivational speaker and an author and the founder of my clothing brand, Love Yourself. And for me, my journey has started in 8th grade. Like, my biggest dream had been to play basketball, to go to the NBA. Like, that was my true passion. And it was in the summer of my 8th grade year where I was diagnosed with a heart murmur. And basically the doctor told me I had some small holes in my heart that was allowing blood to go to places it didn't need to go. And I had to give those holes time to heal. And basically what he told me is if the healing process didn't go right, it was that I wouldn't be able to play basketball at the level I wanted to. So at a young age, it felt like my dream was being, snatched away from me. But it was in that adversity where I think I really found my voice. Like during those 8 weeks, I just dove deeper into myself and asked myself who else I was outside of just the game of basketball. And it was during those 8 weeks where I really found my voice. And I've been blessed to, have videos on my social media on TikTok and Instagram go viral for my motivational messages, and honored to be able to speak, all across the United States sharing my story. But I mean, for me, it's not about the accolades or the recognition of the viral videos, because that's not why I started doing it. Like, I really feel like we all sometimes just need that extra little bit of encouragement, just to get us over the hump. No matter how old we are, no matter how young, how old, we all need, a positive voice in our ear at times just to keep us going when we feel like giving up. And I just want to be that positive voice for the youth and a positive voice for whoever I can touch, just to, be that positivity to encourage them to love themselves and to believe in themselves more each and every day. So I'm honored to be here with Mr. Willie Moore Jr., Mr. Jay Barnett, and just blessed to be in the room with all of you. Thank you all for everybody coming out. I'm truly grateful and honored to be here. And shout out to Silence of Shame, Auntie Shanti. I truly appreciate it all, but thank y'all.
Indeed. Come on, show some love. Indeed. Dr. J, I'm gonna be honest with you, man. I've been seeing you all across the country. I think you and I met maybe about 7-8 years ago, and just see the maturation of your brand is truly inspiring to those who have been under a rock for the last 5 years. Share some of the things that you've accomplished in these past 5 years and why this is so important to you.
Yeah, appreciate you, Willie. This has been a journey, as I have said on many platforms, that healing is a journey and wholeness is a destination. I think oftentimes we're looking for that destination, and if I can be honest, there's no there. It's a process. And over the past few years, I've emerged as a voice, and I didn't set out to be a voice. I set out to, as my young king was saying, sharing my story of surviving 2 suicide attempts after leaving football. It's something that we don't talk about in the Black community because it's something that we thought was a white folks issue. That I grew up in the South, and when you would hear someone took their life, you would say, "Oh, only white people do that." But now all of a sudden it's become a human issue. And as I've said, that I don't think that people are ending their life, particularly in Black males, are ending their life because they don't want to live. I think brothers are ending their life because they're exhausted from performing. I'm gonna just let that sit for a while. And if you look around and look in the eyes of the men, you can see that they're resonating with this message because it's exhausting to perform. And what I'm encouraging brothers to do, rather than focus on performing, focus on producing what comes out of you. And so it's been a blessing. I wrote a book a few years ago after George Floyd titled Just Heal Bro. We turned it into a tour. We've done 20 cities in the past 2 years, and we have 5 cities left. On the tour, I told my manager I gave you a 2-year commitment. So I said, what I will do is pass this on to somebody. Hopefully Willie Moore come on and said, "Hey, I'll take it over." You have it, good brother. So we created it, but it's been a blessing. We average 300 to 500 men in these places, and it's been very cathartic to watch brothers who never had the opportunity to share what they feel. And ladies, can I just say this? For some of you have sons, nephew, even husbands. We're not privy to what you have been given at a very early age, and that is the language to communicate. You're asking him how he feels, and he doesn't have the vocabulary. Without the vocabulary, you don't have the language. So he doesn't know how to tell you how he feels. So his quietness is not that he's disconnected. His quietness is that he's not able to identify with what that is. When I was in private practice, most of the brothers that came into therapy, when I did the Breakfast Club interview, I had to take a week off from work because the office was inundated with calls from Black men. I had 200 Black men in my DMs that was crying, literally brothers that held down their voice memo and said, "Bro, thank you." Then the offices, Jay, we don't even, because I'm only one person. And in Dallas, I was the only Black male therapist that was in our age range. So, and we had a 6 months waiting list. And there was only 3 black male therapists in the region, and the 2 other therapists were 50 and over, but they were not guys that can speak to us 3. So there was no connection. And so I said, God, how do we meet this need? And to be honest, it's challenging because there's no solution right now currently for the demand. So for the brothers that are in here in this space, I want you guys to, I appreciate you guys coming out, because brothers don't come to things like this. Look around. And I want to encourage you, brothers, that you deserve to discover more about yourself than what you've been taught about yourself. I'll pause there.
Man, Doc. Yeah. You know, it's so unique that everybody has their specific stories on why they're here today. You know, when I first met Shanti, I said, you know, our family is struggling through suicide right now because my 16-year-old cousin took his life. And to see somebody so bold about her convictions and how much she wanted to help people, I said, man, listen, if my schedule is ever available, I'm going to always serve this cause. You know, the one thing that I know is that as you talked about, man, men, we suffer in silence. You know, a lot of times people don't even know like what we're going through because, as you said, we don't necessarily have the words. So Marquis, I want to talk to you a little bit about this generation as you get an opportunity to get a bird's eye view of what they encounter, what they go through. Can you talk a little bit about some of the behavior traits that you've noticed that are extremely toxic, and how a parent could speak to their teenage child as they see the small idiosyncrasies that are starting to come to life, whether that's aggressive behavior, whether that's you in a private school, but you still playing like you tough. I'm like, you got a playroom, sir. You not from the hood. Let's get that together. So just talk to that toxic masculinity that's starting to grow in this next generation.
I would say for me, when it comes to that conversation, there's a gap right now between the youth and the older generation. And one thing I see a lot, even with, you know, parents who come and talk to me about, you know, whether it's their son or their nephew, like, and they talk to me about, you know, some of the challenges that they're having with them. One thing that I see a lot of is there's a lack of communication because the parent or, you know, the mentor may not be open to listen to it right now just because they may not understand it. And I think right now there's a lot of disconnect because the older generation is looking at the younger generation like, man, what are y'all doing? We was never allowed to do this when we was y'all age. And the younger generation is looking at the older generation and saying, well, y'all don't understand us at all. And I think there just needs to be more, a better, what's the word for it? Just more open communication between the older generation and the younger generation, just to hear each other out, to meet each other where we're at. I think that's what I'm trying to get to. Like, I feel like there's so many kids that are willing to listen, but they're only going to listen to somebody they feel truly cares about them and wants to hear what they have to say, wants to understand certain things they go through. Yeah. And if they don't feel that, then of course they won't open up and communicate with you on how they feel, certain things that they're going through, because they feel like, well, you may just judge me. Yeah. And no kid wants to be judged. Yeah. So I think, you know, there's just a disconnection, you know, between the older generation and the younger generation, just with that lack of communication. But once we can meet each other where we're at, and let go of the judgment and let go of, you know, even certain things that we may have been taught that may not have been right, you know, that we may have learned from people that were older than us at the time. I think there'll be a lot more, a better relationship between the older generation and the younger generation.
And so, you know, kind of what I'm thinking, what I think I hear you saying is more so we have to come with a common ground, right? So how many parents I got in the house? Just let me see your hand real quick. Grandparents, parents, just let me see your hand real quick. Good. Make some noise if you like, man, I need just a little bit of help. If you can be honest, just say yes. Let me hear you say yes. I need a little help. You put a Holy Ghost hand up. She said, Shataba, you know, right? So being a father of boys, my oldest is 20 years old. He's at the University of Mississippi. We come from, you know, it's a blended family. My other son, he's 15 years old, just turned 15. My youngest son is 8 years old, and my daughter, she's 4 years old. As y'all can see, I got a nice little gap right there. I'm gonna be raising kids for the rest of my life. Pray for me, okay? And y'all keep listening to these shows and all that good stuff because I need that little job. You hear me? But what I've learned is that when I looked at the word communication, it derives from a Latin word that's, I don't know how to use my Latin tongue, but it's really communicare, which simply means a common ground, right? And so when I look at my 20-year-old who's now at the University of Mississippi, I went to the University of Mississippi, I often ask myself, what is the common ground for this young man? And I realize I'm no longer his hovering parent, I'm more so a coach. And he's watching my every move. He called me the other day. He said, Dad, man, I'm about to start counseling. Now, the thing is, I've been in therapy for the last 5 years. I've been counseling, like therapist counseling, anything that I can get involved in, and I was openly sharing. So just having a common ground of my vulnerability with my 20-year-old was just a seed that was planted when he was 17, and now at 20, he's seen that I can pray all day and be at the altar and things can still be going wrong, but I seen my dad go to therapy. So he embarked upon that himself. So here's the thing. A lot of times to my Christian people and my people who are praying people, you can pray what you can't say. A lot of times you getting involved with some of the things that you need to do this and you need to do that. The common ground now is I'm your coach. I'm going to step back a little bit because children come from God. They just come through parents, right? That I get an opportunity to coach from a distance, come with a common ground. My 8-year-old, I attempt to have a common ground with him. He loves YouTube. Guess who on YouTube? That's the perfect place to have a conversation while we watching YouTube. Since we on YouTube, man, let's kind of check out something that got to do with some different behaviors. So what I'm challenging parents to do just in this particular moment as we look at this next generation, they're going to lead us. They're going to lead us. They're going to lead us. So how can we serve the seed of leadership? By creating a common ground of communication with them to lift them up and not bash everything that we see. All right. And I thank God for you, man, because you're definitely doing a great job with this next generation. You know, Dr. J, I want to talk to you a little bit. How can we create like some safe spaces? Because what I heard you say is when you were on the Breakfast Club, they got an opportunity to see a version of a black man that they always wanted to see. And it felt safe because it's hard to get a man to call his wife, his girlfriend, and even his kids sometimes. But they were calling your office, which means they felt safe. You said that there were other African-American men in Dallas, but they were a little older and they could not speak to this. That means you've now curated a conversation and a space where African-American men and men in general feel safe. How can we create that type of opportunity in homes, schools, work environments? How can we create safe spaces?
So I want to, before I answer the question, I want to go back to what you were talking about between the older and then the young generation. Mm-hmm. So here's a challenge. And for my parents, it's hard to hear when you was never heard.
That's good.
How can I give my child something that I've always wanted? So when I need to be hearing them, I'm defenseless. I become defensive. When he or she is saying, you don't understand where I'm at, and here's what is happening. Parents are wrestling with, how do I give you what I've never had? And this is something that I had to reconcile with my father, because once you begin to heal, brothers, there's a level of grace that you're able to extend toward that mother or father or that aunt or uncle that did you wrong or where you experienced that place of trauma. Because here's what I saw. My father should have been what I needed, but he wasn't. But how can he be a father when he's still longing to be a son?
Come on, man. I need a bell or something. What's up, bro? Good to see you. I seen a church face in the back. He said, you didn't want to do it. You was looking too pretty, but you felt it in your shana now right there, didn't you? Come on. Say that one more time, Doc, real quick, because I just feel like it's a bar. It needs to go viral.
How can he be a father when he's still longing to be a son? How can she be a mother when she's still longing to be a daughter? And what is happening with your generation, and this is why I love their generation, because here's the dynamic. Our generation, we didn't know what we were feeling, but we knew how to manage. They know what they're feeling, but they don't know how to manage. So when you guys feel, it's permanent. So we were raised that, shut up, be quiet. So you learn how to conceal. Your generation is, we're going to talk about it and we're going to put it all on social media, right? We're going to divulge everything here. But then there's the inability to not know how to manage, which why suicide is climbing in your generation, because I'm feeling this in this moment, and this moment is as real as it get, and not understanding that it will soon pass. So we are stuck in a generation that we're both fighting for the same thing, because healing cannot start until you feel heard. It's what happens when people come in therapy. The clinicians that I mentor, and I said, listen, if this client, I don't care how skilled you are, as Bishop Jake said, I don't care if you got more degrees than a thermometer, they're not going to hear you. People have to feel heard. And parents, here's what you can do in that moment that a child may seem distance from your teaching, is how can I create a space for the both of us to heal?
That's good. Can you stop right there? How do we do that? Like, how do we create a safe space in the home where you both can heal?
Here's how you create space to heal: through transparency and vulnerability. Most of us didn't see our parents to be humans until we became adults. That you had to become an adult to see who mom and dad really was. And not that you judged them by it, but you were now looking at them through the eyes, not as a mother or as a father, but you now were assessing as a man or as a woman. Because I'm not assessing my mom now as my mom. I'm looking at her as a woman, because I now am a woman. I now am a man. So to hold in that space, here is what I had to do for my mother, because my dad's pastor. So I was, church and
See, I knew it was something in you that kind of felt like, all thing on this was you putting your legs like this and going like this right here. I knew it was a pastor in there. Give it to me, doctor.
So I watch people Sunday after Sunday go to the altar, and I never forget, I wrote this paper. I did a very profound paper on characters of the Bible, and I took 10 characters of the Bible, and I lined up what was happening in their lives in the Bible, and I matched it up to the DSM, to what their disorders and what their dysfunctions were. And it blew them away. And I said, and my professor said, why are you doing this? Because I said, I watched people go to the altar Sunday after Sunday and was still fighting for their life Monday through Saturday. Because deliverance can be instant, but healing is a process. And here's a short story really quick. Here's how this got started with my mother. I was a kid, bro. And there was this lady, Miss Hattie, told this story several times. She was at the altar every Sunday. My mom was Assemblies of God, and my father was a Baptist pastor. So in the South, you use first and third Sunday. And when they wasn't second and fourth, I was with my mom. Sister Maddie was at the altar, sometime at the altar by herself. And I overheard my mom, she has 12 sisters, and 13 women sitting around.
We're talking.
They're not commiserated by anything positive. They're gossiping. So
yes, Lord.
Let's call it what it is. They're definitely not interceding. So I overheard them talking about Sister Maddie had this sex demon as a kid. And I was a very precocious kid. And I said, sex demon. So, and they was like, this is why she was at the altar, because Sister Maddie had a bunch of men in and out of her house. So as I got older, I came back to my mom and I said, Mom, did anybody ever think to ask Sister Maddie what happened? She said, no, but we all know what happened. Sister Maddie was molested. When she was molested, to understand your psychological makeup, when you experience any type of traumatic or anything that shouldn't happen at an early age, it opens up a sensory. So the molestation opened up the behavior of promiscuity. So the behavior was her sleeping around, but the root issue was that she had her innocence taken by a family member. So while church people was gossiping about her having a sex demon, because we like to spiritualize everything and demonize everything, but really this woman had been molested and traumatized. That's when I knew that the church had a problem. And this is why you cannot talk God and not talk psychology. Because when he made mind, body, and spirit, that's what? That's mental health. Mental health is your emotional, physical, and mental state. Mind, body, and spirit. Your mind in the Bible, of course, is called soul, nephesh, from the Greek word psyche. What profits a man to lose his soul? It's not soul, lose your mind. So to create space, that when we had this conversation, my mom began to open up. And I said, Mom, I watched some of your behavior. And then she began to tell me what happened to her as a kid. So parents, it's okay for your children to see where you're not perfect at.
That's real.
Stop trying to present this perfect parent, and these kids are fighting to be perfect and trying to become people that they can never become.
No, that's real.
And that's how you create a safe space, because guess what? When I show you my scars, you go, he been there.
Definitely.
And now you create the pathway to begin healing. And now your child can humanize you. That was the first time that I saw my mom be a human.
Wow. And not a first lady.
There you go, good brother.
That's so good. Come on, man. Show some love to Dr. Gray, man. You know, I really hope you're getting this, because it's so easy to tell you what's going on. It's so hard to tell you how to do it, right? I think you're getting some how today, right? Some practical steps, how you can go back into your home and build a bridge of communication, communicare, a common ground with your child. And also, like with yourself, just full transparency, you know, this little guy, he healed me, and he didn't even know that he healed me, right? And it's exactly what Jay was talking about. Like, as an African-American man, like, I grew up like I was adopted. I never met anybody in my biological family until 2020. And so, like, being able to be so talented and have so many things, like, I lived to perform. Like, I'm just going to perform. It's like a dopamine hit. You clap, I get excited. And that's the way I live my life. And I realized that when a shattered performance or a not so good performance, especially in the area of parenting, like, it would shatter my heart a whole lot more than it did most people. But I asked my 7-year-old, he's 8 now, when he was 7 years old, because I was 7 years old when the kids across the street decided to make a song called I Don't Mess with Adopted Kids. And I sung that song, and I ran in and I told my mom that those kids told me that I was adopted, and my mother, she loved God, still cuss a little bit. She went up that hill. And I knew she wasn't praying when she was talking to him, because her nails was this long and she had a jerry curl, and she did like this. And when she did like that, I knew that was not a praying time. That was a cussing time, praise God. But she came back in and she told me what those kids talked about, what those children talk about is true. And I said nothing at 7 years old. I ran out, I cried, I came back, they gave me pizza, I hugged them, and I took every bit of the love that they gave. Now, back in the day, when you clap on how much love my parents gave me, that was an amazing moment. But at 7 years old, there were some questions that should have been asked. I asked my son, what would you say at 7 years old if you found out that your mother and your father weren't necessarily the parents that birthed you? He said, can I think about it for a minute? Just that alone was enough for me to see the right behavior in a child that's being parented correctly. And he said, I would tell them that I was a little upset about it. That I would have, and he went down a laundry list of things that he would have said at 7 years old. And with tears in my eyes, I said, you were so much braver than I was at 7. But he healed me. He gave me the right thing to do. And so, because it's flesh of my flesh, right? Like, you can sit with your child and have a vulnerable moment, and the healing process may start with them telling you what they would do if it happened at 14. When they 14, talk about it 14, and you'll realize that God is doing something so special with this next generation. And you can see the beauty in it. And to see that 7-year-old minister to me and not even know he ministered to me, I didn't even run away. I just cried in his face, because I wanted him to see a man cry. When he cries, I don't say, don't cry, you a man. I say, man, go ahead and let that out, because the Bible says that those who sow in tears are going to reap in joy. So keep on sowing them tears and let the joy come next. Parents, there's something special when you can share your vulnerabilities and not your triumphs with your children and build a bridge, communication, communicare, common ground, right? I want to talk to you just a little bit. Maybe we go here and we'll go back with this question because I do want to be able to really hone in on, why is mental health so important to you? And specifically, why did you dig so deep into mental health? Was there something that you saw at an early age? Were there different issues at the home? Or was there something on the inside of you that said, hey, this is something that I should embark upon?
So for me, I'll talk about my middle school journey first. In middle school, I spent a lot of time searching outside of myself for validation. And I didn't realize it until I got out of it that I was constantly trying to please other people. Like, I don't know if it's just me, but like, I've been a people pleaser majority of my life. I don't like disappointing people. I don't like seeing people unhappy with me. So I conformed in a way to try to make other people feel a certain way about me. And it was in that where I lost myself a lot of the time. And I would say, like, in middle school, it wasn't until I really started to love myself more where I no longer cared about what other people thought about me. Like, one thing I learned in middle school was like, man, we're all going through our own go through. A lot of the insecurities that my peers was putting onto me, they were dealing with themselves. And I didn't realize that at the time I was feeling discouraged and feeling as if, folks were getting at me. But the whole time there was folks getting at them. That's why they were coming at me like that. So, I would say, like, that's where it started for me. I was searching outside of myself for that validation. And that's why I'm so heavy on loving yourself and staying true to who you are. And, not only that, but it got a lot deeper for me when I lost my big brother. Like, I didn't have anybody close to me that had ever been that I lost that I really had that deep connection with at the time. So I didn't even know what that feeling of losing somebody so close to you would feel like.
How did you lose him?
Suicide. And it was so unexpected. I remember I woke up and, I went to my bathroom. I'm getting ready. I'm finna have a great day. And my daddy came to me. He was like, Keys. And I'm like, what's up, Pop? I'm good energy. And he was like, man, I don't even know how to tell you, bro. And my pops, he's like a very straightforward, he's a straight shooter. Like you said, Dr. Barnett, like, when it comes to transparency, he's always transparent with me. So I'm like, what is he, struggling telling me? And when he told me how my big brother, had passed, it struck me hard. And he was, one of my biggest inspirations. I'm telling you, when it came to my hoop dreams, he was one of my biggest supporters. Like, in the gym, he would always tell me the same thing. Like, you gonna be great, Keith. You gonna be great, MJ. Like, keep going, keep pushing. And losing him to suicide, seeing how strong he seemed, hurt me. And
how strong he seemed.
And I think it was for me, like, I felt a certain responsibility, like, dang, like, at the time I'm doing this motivational stuff, right? Giving these positive. I'm like, dang, man, I should have called up my big bro from time to time. But I thought he was good. Like, I didn't know this was gonna happen. I didn't, foresee this at all. So, like, that really struck a deep chord with me. And that's why I'm so heavy on, really checking up on your strong friends now, like really checking up on, people that you may think are good when we all are going through our own mental battles. And sometimes we all need a little help.
That's good.
Most definitely.
Marquis, I thank you for sharing, man.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for your bravery. Thank you for your bravery. Doc, how do we get people out of seemingly being okay and really getting down to the root? Like, what are some of the signs that we can kind of pick up on? What can we do proactively to make sure that it doesn't get to that point? Because I hear this story time to time that there were no signs, there was nothing. No. What can we do, or is there anything we can do?
It's very convoluted because I heard Archie or somebody say something about loving yourself, being well, or looking well, or something like that. I think that's something you said. But we have become masters at looking well, but not being well. Yeah. Right? Because we would dress it up. And you'll look at people and you'll say, oh, she's got it going on. And, I watch people, for the past 3 years during the pandemic, and I watched a man kiss his wife, love her, on her, guy gave her flowers, kissed all his kids, and went sat in the car and took his life. And everybody was confused. And it's hard to really determine where a person is if you don't have a real relationship with them. And we're in an era now where we're overly connected but underly commune. Like, we're engaging, but we're not connecting. I want to get close to Willie because of what he does, but I'm not really trying to connect. I want to, I'll rep the shirt, but it's like I'm not really connected to the message. So we miss signs because people talk. And not all the time is it talking here. It's through body language. It's through the nonverbal cues. And here's a way to start. Everybody, there's 7 brothers that I'm in a connection with. Every Monday, we're on a Zoom call. Every Monday. 7 brothers. We're all in different spaces in life, and we hop on Zoom. Somebody would start off, hey man, week was good. Wife and kids, not so good. And then every brother, and we sit there and we talk and we process, and then somebody would pray. But it's been the most liberating thing to have that. Because let me tell you something, brothers. Study shows men after 35 don't make friends. And some of you are sitting here, you're loners. And let me tell you, being alone, you'll find yourself in some very uncomfortable position, because when you're alone, the voices are talking. And what I do with all of my brothers, I never ask them how they're doing. Because if I ask you how you're doing, guess what? That's associated with what? Performance.
I'm good, bro.
Exactly. I always ask, brother, how you feeling? Do you realize how many men have to pause and think about, how am I feeling? And brothers, are we asked that often, brothers? Come on, be honest, man. Raise your hand. Are we asked that? We're not. Yeah, and ladies, thank you guys for being here. And the other way is I love what Shanti's has called his organization, Silence and Shame, because most of us don't open up because of the fear of being shamed. But can I tell you, shame loses its power in exposure. And Black folks, we have an issue with secrecy that has poisoned multiple generations. And I tell all of my clients, you own that same as your secrets. And so we have to understand that the only way that I have, like my brothers know, and here's the thing, we have a 24-hour rule. If you don't hear from them 7 dudes in 24 hours, hey, where you at? And it's become something that all of us have gravitated to. Because brothers, let me tell you something. Outside of your wife, you need a community.
Gotta have it.
You need a community. How many of you guys are married in here? The brothers in here married. Yeah. And brothers not married. You need community.
That's so good.
I got the call when Twitch passed and Charlemagne had me come to New York and do it. And it was triggering for me because I've shared my battles with, surviving suicide, and then oftentimes battling with survivor's gift. Like, God, why did you keep me alive? Because it's like I've had so many stories. 2 of my best friends' sons took their lives in the past 2 years. Like, I'm talking about guys I talk to every day. And one is a national figure who travels this world preaching, and it is the most hardest things that we're trying to wrap our mind around, because men, I want to say this in a way that really lands. We don't feel like our voice is valuable, and it is.
So valuable.
We only feel like we're being heard when we're providing. I want y'all to catch that. We only feel like we're being heard when we're paying a bill, when we're taking care of something. And my challenge to you brothers as you're sitting here today is you have got to give what you give to your family, your mom and them, your auntie, all. You have got to give it to yourself.
That's good.
I'm talking about in a way where you take yourself to the doctor. find somebody that you can trust outside of your spouse. Your wife can't carry what you carry. So sometimes you can't really share everything. And I have to tell brothers that, man, when you come into therapy, like to lay all of that on your wife, it's heavy for her.
Yeah.
So having a place where you can process, and when you come into therapy, brothers, the first thing brothers like, nigga. And he be like, oh my bad, brother. I said, bro, you safe in here. And recently I had this brother high up, 38 years old, and he says, Jay, I think I'm going to cry in this session. And I said, when was the last time you cried? He said, man, I was like 8 when my dad left. His dad left, but the reason his dad left was really a good reason for him, because his father was an addict. And so what we broke down was dad abandoning you, or was dad really
he's protecting you?
Protecting you? Do you know opening up that pathway in his brain changes everything, and tears? And he was like, I said, stop.
Let that go.
I said, let him go.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, this is what is keeping you from being open with your wife. Because let me tell you something, when you got closed portals in here, you can't open this up, brothers. Brothers, we rarely experience real love. Mm-hmm. We'll give, but we have a difficult time receiving, because to receive means you have to do what? Open up. And we've been so accustomed to giving physically, sexually, rather than somebody really seeing the parts of you, really open up the crevices of your heart. And guess what? That's why we don't live long, black men. Women outlive us because they allow themselves to go through a process where, when we study not cognitive, but when we were studying heart disease amongst black men in school, when we got to the core of it, it was the lack of emotional processing. Most of these men was holding stuff in for so long that it had created an internal dis-ease, which later became a heart disease. So you had poor blood flow. Poor blood flow, you have low testosterone levels. Low testosterone levels, you don't have any energy to work out. You don't have any energy to participate in life. So you just fade into the abyss.
No, that's so good.
And
so good.
When you die, they go and eat some nasty macaroni and cheese and just say,
yes,
well, Daddy show was good, wasn't he?
And put you on a t-shirt.
Last, I want to say this. What Shanti is doing with this silence and shame, man, like, when I got in therapy, brothers, my godmother found me under a bed. I'd overdosed. And when I came on through that process, and my circle said, you have got to get some help, because my depression was from my childhood. And my coping mechanism was football. I wasn't going to smoke. I wasn't going to drink, but I wanted to put that helmet on. That was how I coped. And that was how I anesthetized. And so when I couldn't do that, but can I tell you, fast forward, when I got in therapy, and that man told me to come back, bro, and he said, just keep showing up. I said, okay. I said, I'm going to see what this is going to do. Man, it opened up things, man. And I began, and I'm going to tell you something. When you begin to heal, it actually take the weight off, and you begin to look younger. And your shoulders, your shoulders. Like, you know, and I'm saying this because, brothers, you deserve to be healthy. I'm 41. It was 10 years ago, 31 when my second attempt. And people really, you know, to those who are close by me, like that know the story, would tell you they saw me for past 10 years really walk this thing out. And I didn't know why I was walking out. And literally, God came to me when he said, something is coming. Literally, in 2015, I was in grad school. I'm like, all right, I'm going to go to school, be a therapist. I don't know. Sit in my office, and God says, something is coming, and you're going to be needed. Do you know when George Floyd came and that happened, Taraji discovered me. And I was on the Breakfast Club at that time virtually with her and her best friend, Tracy. And I've been in the mental health space since 2013. And do you know how many men would be like, man, ain't nobody got no man, bro? And especially guys that I play with, hey, bro, you need to. Now everybody's calling because they was like, man, you were really ahead of your time. But I knew God had really called me into this space because playing ball in my community, in my church, I never see a man be vulnerable. And let me tell you something, brothers. You can't see who you are until you're vulnerable. Because while you're trying to be this, God is wanting to peel back those layers and let me look at that lamb, because there's a duality in our masculinity. You can be a lion and a lamb. You can tear up stuff, but then you have the capacity to let me put something back together. So while you're trying to hold everything together, brother, I'm charging you to put you together, because when men start healing, watch our communities begin to heal.
No, that's good. Come on, give it up for Dr. J. Barnett. So we literally have to put a ball on this thing, as you could tell, like we can really go in. Ladies and gentlemen, can you just say this out loud? Safe space. Say it loud. 3, 2, 1. Safe space. And I want you to really see the conversation that's being curated, because I want you to know that this could happen in your home, your workspace. Like, we don't have to be so connected to what's going on the outside world that we're not smart enough, intelligent enough, and wise enough to really tackle what's going on internally with us and our internal circles, because we all have something to say. And when a person feels like they're heard, they'll continue to communicate. So make sure that you're able to create this space in your own personal areas of life. So just putting a bow on it. Any final words that you want to share with parents, loved ones, friends, and others? Because we're going to go into some Q&A after this, right? A little Q&A. So I want to make sure that we put a bow on everything that we want to give, because I know we're here to serve people. Marquis, talk about it. Let's do it.
I would say if there was anything that I could leave you all with today, it'll just be to be your own biggest cheerleader and be your own biggest supporter. Like, one of the biggest things I believe in is, regardless of if you have, anybody to speak life into you, make sure you're always that person speaking life into yourself. Like Dr. Barnett was just saying, when it comes to that voice, right, that's always talking to us when we're alone, right? Because we're with ourselves majority of the time. Make sure that voice is speaking life into you and uplifting you and not tearing you down. None of us are perfect. I appreciate that. None of us are perfect. We all making progress every single day. One step forward, that's how you get ahead. But just make sure that you that positive voice that you hear every morning.
That's good. Y'all show some love to the young gun. Young Jizzle. We love you. And then 60 seconds, give it to him, Doc. Just final words before we do Q&A.
Man, healing is a journey, brothers, and wholeness is the destination. Give yourself grace. And I think we don't do enough of that. We're not gracious to ourselves, and we are quick to give it to others, but not to ourselves. And so, just be gracious to yourself, and allow yourself the opportunity to walk that out. Therapy is not a one and done; it's a daily journey. And so, if you commit to that journey of discovering you will discover levels of yourself that you've never experienced.
Indeed. Come on, show some love. Dr. J. Barnett, make sure you follow both of these brothers on social media. And, as I end, ladies, I know that there was a lot of talk about men. And I just want to let you know that it goes both ways with you guys, right? A lot of times when you hear these panels and you finally hear a man talk about it, just in that particular words, like, oh, men are going through, you're supposed to be this, you're supposed to be that. But we're dispelling the myth of toxic masculinity. And just to all my people who have children, teenagers, middle school kids, elementary kids, even if they're over 20, I want to let you know the power of life and death is in your tongue. And you have the power to speak into your children. That's something that I started doing with every single child. It's my 20-year-old right now. He's in school. I used to go to his crib, and I would speak life over him. And I said, God, I thank you that after you, I have the most influential voice in his life. And to this day, when it's a spring break, he's still calling me, talking about, Daddy, let's go on spring break. I said, I know I'm cool, but you got to have a friend group. He's like, we just want you to go with us, Mr. Moore. And I remember that prayer, that I would have the second most influential voice in his life. And I won't even look at this amazing 8-year-old, but he knows these words. You are smart. You are intelligent. You are loved. You are cared for. You are honored. You are trusted. You are such an amazing young man. And God has such a special call on your life. Preston, who's daddy's favorite 8-year-old? Yeah. Every morning, speaking to him. Speaking to him. Speaking to him. Speaking to her. Speak what you see. The power of life and death is in your tongue. I'm an ex everything, but my mama saw this version, and this is the version that she spoke to. There's a king and a fool, a queen and a fool, in every single one of our children. The one you speak to the most is the one you're going to get. Choose ye this day who you will speak to. Y'all make some noise for this amazing panel. Family, you guys have been an amazing audience, but to be honest, this can only get better when we get an opportunity to hear from you. So we want to open up the floor for you guys to answer and ask any questions. I'm just gonna call you Vanna Cream, not white, just Vanna Cream. She's gonna have a microphone. So make sure that you just raise your hand, and she's gonna get to you. We're gonna answer a few questions, and of course, we'll be available. Oh, Vanna Cream and Vanna Brown. Praise God. Yes, indeed. My two Vannas. Indeed. So any questions? Let's raise our hands, and then they'll get the mics out. Got a question here. Safe space. Come on, say it with me one more time. Safe space. That's what this is.
Oh, okay. Hello. Nice to meet all of you guys. Just a quick question, because I have a 15-year-old son and I have a husband who's very, tough. But my question is for my 15-year-old son. You mentioned about communication, and he's definitely that kid when you say, how was your day? It's good. What happened in class? It was fine. What are some of the tools to help him find the words to express his emotions or what he's feeling, besides me prompting and telling him to say more words or try again or say something that I can understand? And eventually he'll say more things, but I don't think it's natural for him to express himself. And so what are some of the tools that are available to kind of help him find the words?
Okay, so we're gonna start with this demographic here and what he would want to hear at 15, because you're closer there, and then scientifically, let's just talk about the teenage brain and the cortical cortex and all of that. So let's go here in 60 seconds to answer. What could she do to have a better communication opportunity, common ground with her 15-year-old?
I would say me at 15, I would say just give me time. I would say be there and always be willing to listen, but give me my own time. I know for me at 15, when I was constantly asked like over and over again, it may make me want to shy away from it instead of, going to the conversation. But say you plant the seed, you give me my time. Like you said, I'm just your coach. Like, you plant the seed in me, let me have my time. And then when I'm ready to communicate, I'll come back. And if the communication never happens, I think it's just that constant showing up that really shows to a kid that, man, they care. Like, I think for me, my dad, when he does that, sometimes I may not talk about it in like that first, 15, 30 minutes, even an hour that he asked me the question, but I may come back 2-3 hours later like, Pop, this is what I got for you. So I would just say, like, give it time and give him space, and he's going to come around.
Indeed, that's good. Let's talk about it scientifically. He's 15 years old. He's got a lot going on. Middle school, high school, girls, social media, want to be dripped out, has no money. Yeah. Let's get that out the way. Oh, God.
Yeah.
Them shoes, $250. And you want how many pounds? Let's talk about it, Doc.
Don't make it feel like interrogation. I'm 41, and my mom, I'm the only boy, so she I'm the only son, and my mom, I have a boundary. We don't talk before 10 a.m. like, unless that's my boundary. And she'll know. King, I said, Mama, and she know when I say it like that. Hey, King, you know what? I'll give you some time and come back and ask you. But don't make it feel like interrogation, because for us as men, we process through silence, as young King says. But what you could do is find a topic centered around where he's at and spark a conversation around it. So when I was in private practice, my colleagues were wearing cardigans, and collar shirts. I've been there with some J's on, and with a hoodie on. I'm me. I've always been me. So one day I had this white kid in there, and no one wanted to see anything other races, but lived in Houston before I moved to Dallas, a private practice. So Houston is a melting pot. So in my clinical practice, I've worked with every nationality and every race. So the white kid, I'm in there, he sit down, and he was like, man, he said, where you get them 11s from? I said, man, I got these off of eBay. Door open. And we started talking about shoes. That was the first 15 minutes of the therapy session. And I took shoes, and it created a pathway into what we were talking about because he was dealing with depression. And the question I asked him, I was like, man, when you throw them shoes on, how do you feel? He said, man, I'll be fly, Mr. J. So how does that? So find things to create pathways in order, because you're not, and this is couples. Here is the thing. True communication is not about getting it out. It's about getting it in. We're so focused, I got to get this out. I got to get this out. No, you want to get it in. And what you wanted to get in is let him take you into his world, how he answered. And that would tell you how he thinks and how your response will give him the vocabulary.
No, that's good. That's good. And just last thing, I'm consistent with what my night ritual is. So every single night when, during my weeks when all the children are there, and if not, I get that oldest one on FaceTime. Yes, I do get on FaceTime. We about to do devotion. Yeah, and I give them hello, and what we do is we start devotion with lows and highs. I start. My low of the day is A, B, C, D, E, F, G. My high of the day is A, B, C. Notice I ended with the high because the low is buried after the high, right? And then we have a scripture that we lock in on the week, and then we do a prayer. Now, when I wasn't waxing real deep with my children, the communication was like, well, today my low was I didn't do so good on this particular test. My high was I had a good day. Peace. And then we move on. But at least I'm communicating. But when when it clicked in my head that if I wanted them to communicate, I would have to wax deeper in what I would communicate so they can feel comfortable enough to go deeper, right? Like everybody up here feels so comfortable because you know what happened to his brother. You know that I was adopted. You know that he had 2 suicide attempts and he's one heck of a doctor, right? So now if I talk to you, when we leave this stage, usually when I talk to mamas and daddies, they go real deep with me because they know all my business. So you feel comfortable sharing a little bit about yours. So I think if you can create a regimen of like clear, not just, you got to do this, you got to do that, but a level of communication that's a lot deeper. What happened at work? I don't know what I'm about to do about this last little bill that came up. I didn't know Master charged 17.9% on that credit card. At that introductory rate, it wasn't 7%. Like, you can have conversation and they just like, I don't really understand that, but evidently it's deep. That my children actually go a little deeper, but it happened over time. Change don't happen in an event, it happens over time. So I think we're talking about the same thing. Like, time is just so good. What's his name? Just real quick, if you Hudson. Indeed, I'll keep Hudson in prayer. And you do a really, really good job with him. And trust God with him too. Sometimes we micromanage what only God can expand.
Yeah.
All right.
And two, to add, ladies, we don't communicate like y'all. We're linear. You guys are circular. Oftentimes, I'm telling my mom, come on, baby, land the plane.
Over and over.
Man. Like, just tell me you went to the stove. She got to tell me who she ran into at the stove. What the lady said to her in the parking lot. I saw somebody and I had to pray for him. Mama, what did you get at the store, baby?
Praise the Lord.
And oftentimes mothers like, again, relational or parental is like, we don't communicate like you guys. And that's okay. It's why we need each other. And so he not going to give you a bunch of words. I still don't have a bunch of words because I grew up around a bunch of sisters. Like, people come around, so you a speaker, and they around my family, they be like, he's so quiet. I said, you would too if you grew up in a house over talking you and
You don't get a point. We have a hand over here too, or you have one over there. I don't want you to do a workout, but if we can come here, then we'll go there. Is that
Yeah,
good?
we have time for 2 more questions, so I'm gonna go right here and I'll go over there.
Okay.
Hi. I guess this is for Dr. Barnett. You talked a little bit about how your mother started to share some of her personal stories with you, from the church story that you shared. And it made me think a little bit about vicarious trauma. How do we have those transparent conversations, but not re-traumatize each other, or pop a memory capsule that could maybe, you might be telling a story to someone that's a close ear to you, but then you could also be potentially affecting their nervous system, their sensations, and just kind of making them or put them in a place where they can almost be re-traumatized in a way, or they can kind of bring up memories that they might not be ready to deal with.
Yeah, so if you're going to have conversations like that, rather than doing it with you and the other person, I would say have someone that is a mediator or someone that balance the conversation. And then also what you could do is map, is what we call mapping, is determining what could be shared and what not could be shared. And then too, also reading the body language of how far can you go. Because I think once you read the body language, and as you're right, the nervous system is going to respond. Because we all can tell when he's kind of like, I may have taken it too far, a touch deeply. And then too, just trot. So it doesn't have to be a moment where everything is vomited out at that time, right? But it can just kind of be in a space, and then don't make it so formal. I think what happens is, like, I've encouraged parents, like, go to dinner or go hang out and just spend time, go to brunch, and throughout the day, y'all just kind of let the conversation just kind of be guided through what you're doing. And then you'll feel when this is a moment. Because I can always tell when the process has taken a turn and it's like, okay, now they're ready to go there. Because people have to kind of be prepped, to have those conversations. But in that moment, you can just kind of, map with them to see where they are and then see where you are. Because you're right. You don't want to re-traumatize yourself and that person.
Indeed. What's your name? Shimera? Indeed. Thank you for sharing. We appreciate it. Indeed. There's one more over here.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much. I wish my baby daddy and my son was in this room.
Shout out to your baby daddy, though. I like his name. I like his name, too. BD.
Hearing what you have said today has given me even a different perspective on how to converse with him about our children on growing. My child is 18 now in Florida. Shout out to Ole Miss. I'm from Mississippi. But my son made me realize something right before graduation, which was like April of this year. I said, I have all these dreams of you going to college, and I dreamed of you being this person, and I see your potential. He said, did you ever ask what my dream was?
Ooh.
That shifted and shook me to my room, and I was like, I'm going to be back. So to parents, I always say, and I want to just give a kudos to you guys for being here and being transparent. Recognize that we have dreams for our children, but sometimes we have to ask the question, what have you been dreaming of? So how do you guys just speak on that?
Indeed. Young Gunner, you want to get it, MJ?
I really want to hear from you,
Okay.
Mr. Willie Moore Jr. Yes, sir.
Give me that last little question real quick, because they were telling me I could do 2 more.
So my question is, how do we transform our minds to be able to see their dreams and not portray what we dream for them on them?
Yeah, no doubt. So here's the thing, and I can only speak for myself because nothing is canon, nothing is like, this is just my way. When the kids get about 3 years old, I submit them to God, and I say, God, tell me what this little boy supposed to be doing, or what this little girl, like, God, give me a vision so I don't pull out what you want to keep in. So with this particular child here, he's 8 years old. He probably you can go take a little walk if you need to too, son, if you need to. I know how it go. Like, this way too long for him, but I understand him. He like, thank you, Daddy. Praise God. There you go. Yeah. Yeah, just take a little walk. Don't go too far, champ. I trust him. You noticed what he did, though, didn't you? Don't miss this. Don't miss this. You see what he did? You see what he picked up? That's my bag. That's what he's responsible for because God told me he will be a responsible leader. So I'm sowing into him early on what God has told me, not what I want for him, because I was an athlete. I'm from the neighborhood, Berkeley, Missouri, median income $17,000. I want him to have a little edge. He a private school kid. I'm just like, well, maybe you don't need that edge for where you're going. You know, like, oh my God, Daddy, what type of school is this? This is called a public school. He's like, I don't want to go here. I was just like, well, you better get them grades going, or you gonna have to go to Trauma High School. Praise God. But in any event. But what I do is honestly, like I ask God, what does he have? And he says he's going to be a leader and he's going to be a responsible leader. And so what I do now is when I meet with the teachers, and I say, listen, he's going to ask a whole lot of questions. Don't talk down to him because he actually wants to know. If he goes to a babysitter back then, I only had a few, he's going to ask a lot of questions. It's gonna feel like he's getting smart. For some parents, the way he walked out, that's too much. But I've asked God, I've connected with God and said, God, what do you have in this child? What I've noticed with parents is you have this expectation and you pull out what God wants to keep in. So to those of you who have different metaphysical orientations, that's fine. But I just want you to ask your creator or what you believe or your subconscious, like, God, like children come from God, they just come through parents. And so if they come from God, like a Bentley's still a Bentley if you get it from a used car lot. It came from that manufacturer, right? And so you got to know how to steward what God has given you. Last thing that I'll give on that particular thing, I'm always following the dreams of a child because as you know, your career done changed a few times. I know that their dreams and aspirations are going to grow with their level of maturity. And so I'm just rolling with the punches because we're living in a changing seascape, not a changing landscape. It's going to change forever. It's going to keep moving. And so I always say this, parents, and I really want you to get this. I'm no expert. I just raised a few great children, okay? Listen, I am always flexible so I don't get bent out of shape. There it is. She said I could take 2 more. Let's do it.
Hello. Okay. Hi, y'all.
I like your clothes too, child. Put the look.
Thank you.
Don't get to them. Go ahead.
Thank you. Firstly, I want to say, I just want to commend you on your parenting because when you were saying affirmations, he was sitting over here whispering it this is just second nature to him. And so I love that because I would have loved that growing up. Still growing up, but So my question is, it's really for all y'all because I'm kind of curious. I know that men like to hear from men and it really helps, but I want to know, is there anything that a woman in your life has said to you that has kind of healed some trauma you didn't know you had?
Yes. Yeah. Let's go. Here. And go ahead.
Yeah, he ain't there yet. Yeah, which is a blessing, good brother.
It's all good, man.
Yeah.
Your DMs though.
Yeah.
We'll talk to you about it later.
Look, they gonna have trouble with you because you're aware. Yeah. But absolutely. I think my a girl that I dated when I was in my 20s after I was done playing ball, I remember her saying to me, Jay, you don't have to be what you've experienced. And she was a reason that I began therapy because we were no longer together. But her thing was she wanted to see me well. And then my mother, I love her to the moon and back because even the night that I overdosed, I had my last conversation with her. And I was in so much pain. And she says, King, and she's always called me King. She says, King, Jade's son, please don't do this. And I was just tired. And I was on the phone with both of my parents. And my dad, who has always been so, he's very deflective. Like he's an avoider. He never wants to deal with anything. And his response was like, here we go again with this. And that was the trigger for me. And I told my mom, this is the last time y'all hear from me. And I was getting off the phone. She was saying to me, son, please don't do this. And she was still praying. She said, I know what God told me about you. And she then further says, well, Jay, you know, if you do this, you know, the saints, I've never read this in the Bible, but they say if you end your life, you know, that's an automatic ticket, you know. And so
To the hot place.
you know, in her mind, she said, you know, son, what if you wake up in hell? I said, baby, this is where I was. I said, baby, I don't care where I wake up at, just as long as I can get rid of this pain and stop dealing with y'all trying to make me feel like I'm not in this space. So most of my recovering healing came through the voice of a woman. And women, you have something in you that brings healing because your body carries life. So when he was talking about you speak life, and I'm not saying that you have to be a part of a man's healing process. You are not a healer.
Yeah,
because that means you don't have to heal him. Don't try to be his Messiah, his Savior, and fixer. You just aid in the process. Because some of y'all have taken on that responsibility of healing, and it's worn you out. And so for me, it was, and then my sisters saw me go through this process, and they were supported in this journey because here I was going against this. Like, we didn't do therapy. It was you get on that altar and you don't get up.
Come on, tarry for the Lord.
Tarry. You know what I mean? And so, and I even said to the pastor, well, what happens when you get up from the altar and what you laid down follows you back home? Because no one has given you the practical steps. And so, women, we need to support. Everything that I've done in the mental health space for the past 3 years has been at the support of a Black woman. Let me just say that. So
That's because you wear your shirt so tight. That's because you wear your shirt so tight like that, and the women like to see that. I see you on the internet.
It's I mean from
she said amen, man of God. Somewhere over here was an amen section.
What?
I just want to tell you. Praise Jesus.
From Taraji supports my tour. Tracy supports my tour. My tour manager is a woman. Everything from the work that I've done with Congress has all, I mean, women, you guys are leading the pathway in this space. And Black women have truly opened the door from even my ticket into OWN, from helping executive produce mental health series has all been on Black women says he needs to be in here. So Black women, I thank you. And women, you play an important role because you carried a weight. And I apologize that we were not able to help you carry that weight because we were dealing with our own stuff. But we're coming. We're coming. So we thank you. And I want sisters because my mom, she tells people, baby, what you see on that stage was a lot of prayers because I can't imagine having a child that was on all through college. I was a 4-year starter. My jersey's retired in college. I was on suicide watch every year and was a star athlete because I was a manic depressive. As long as I was playing, I was good. As soon as that game was over, I would be severely depressed from Monday through Friday. And I lived by myself, which was not a great idea because I was a star athlete. So it's like, you get your own apartment, and I just couldn't imagine my mom staying on the phone praying, you gonna live, because it was just that bad. And she never gave up on me. And when I graduated with my doctorate, she just cried because she's like, I just remember being on the floor because that suicide, we don't have enough time to talk about the spiritual because it's really a spirit, and that thing is so weighted, man, to wake up every day not wanting to be here, like literally driving and just saying, man, what would it be like if I just swerve over into this traffic? Man, if I could just jump off this bridge, what would happen? I mean, to the point where I've lived it where get that gun out of the house, because the voices will be so loud. And here's when the voices come after you've had a great moment. After you had a great moment. That's why I love Elijah in the Bible, because after he had this great moment, he was now, that's a real thing. Because oftentimes success does not feel like it. It don't feel like what they told you it would feel like. And that's why depression, man, that thing is real. And if you don't have a plan in place when it comes, man, it's just grabbing people left and right. I mean, just look at the stars, these people that we revere, that's ending their lives. So it's real. And that young king says something, man. You spend a whole lot of time with yourself, so you better make sure what you're listening to is giving life to you, because you can't give what you don't have.
I love it. You can't hear what you can't have. You can't hear what you can't have. Man of God said, you talking right. That's what he said. And you say that in the spirit. I bet you talking right in my show. No. I'm gonna say the woman who healed me is my biological mother. Hadn't met her all my life, had all these questions. She refused to meet me in 2009, found out she had a brain tumor. She don't remember that to this day. But when I walked into the room, she said, I apologize. And those words were enough. And then I found out, she said, the other words she said first day meeting her, she said, I was young, I was only 19 years old. And if I could, I wouldn't have never gave you up. And those words healed me so much. And then from that moment on, I've been walking around being myself ever since. I already thought I was 7 feet tall. In the spirit, I'm 10 feet now. Just to know that the wholeness and the beauty of adoption and foster care has been such a beauty. So I would say my biological mama did that for me. And then, of course, along the way, there have been some pretty girls that done healed me in other ways that I dare not share on this stage. Praise Jesus. Hallelujah. Man, I got a woman that spoke to your heart real quick.
I would say, 3 women that like really spoke to me. And I know I've had, a variety of like different, people who have spoke life into me throughout my journey. But both of my grandmothers, my grandma Hill and my grandma Kim, I love them. And my mother, one thing that's been consistent between all 3 of them is they always told me to be you. Like, stay true to who Marquise is. There is no other Marquise on this earth. It's only one of you. So just continue to be yourself. And I think that was one thing that helped me a lot mentally when it came to, that conforming that I was telling you about earlier. It was always that consistent theme of just being yourself, staying true to who you are. So shout out to my grandma. Shout out to my mother. I love them.
I love it. Shout out to mama and grandma.
How y'all doing?
Hey, bro.
Mine goes towards the beginning of you guys coming up there and actually talking. And it goes back to my childhood. So you speak on what you felt you had, like mother, father, whether it was biological or wasn't biological. What about those young adults that was forced to be an adult? Because like when I grew up, I was the adult at a certain point in my time. So it's like you couldn't turn to father wasn't there. Couldn't turn to mama was having problems. I paid every bill in the house at one point at 17. So what do y'all say to those? Because my route didn't make it any better because that's kind of why I ran off and I went to the military, but it made it worse. I got more friends that committed suicide in there than anything. So it's like, what do y'all say to those people to find the right path off of that?
What good part? Now, let them keep that. What parts of having to pay bills at 17 do you admire about yourself?
None. Honestly, I say it like this. Me forced to do certain things. My appreciation came for the fact that my little sister could have clothes, she could have shoes.
So your little sister, you appreciate at 17 that you were able to do that for your little sister?
Yeah.
Okay, we found something that was good. What pisses you off the most that you had to do that?
That everybody else around me was getting that from their parents. I bought my first car. Everybody else's parents was buying them cars. Mm-hmm. I kept the lights on. Their parents was keeping the lights on. Mm-hmm. So,
yeah. I want to tell you this. I apologize that happened to you, man. That wasn't fair. I apologize that happened to you, bro. That was not fair. I really apologize to you, brother, because that was not fair. Thank you so much for knowing that this is a safe place. I can't speak to your situation. Maybe the other brothers can. But I just send my hand to you and tell you, man.
Actually, you did. Both of you did. Because I had to do it myself. So as I got older, I found ways. Because everybody different. So I found ways out of that situation. I still deal with some things, but finding those ways, I didn't have to, like you said, you know, they didn't have to be biological. I got an aunt. She works in a building on a military base. You know what I mean? I got a friend I look at as a second mother. So I got those.
Man, I'm just so thankful that you would feel comfortable enough to share. And my prayer is that you have some circle of guys that you can have in your, in your area to share. And, for me, being adopted and looking around, like my parents created such a beautiful, nice environment, but there was always this question mark that I had in my heart, in my head of what they look like. To be this talented and not know your mother, never meeting anybody there. Everybody else in my family was so tall. Of course, I'm compact, okay? I'm adorable. Let's get that out the way. This adorable. Let's get that out the way. But they were taller, right? And so that was really, really tough for me. But what I decided to do, and of course, I definitely don't know your metaphysical orientation, but I believe that every gap requires a savior. And that's where I put Jesus in, right? Like, so for me, like Jesus wasn't there to save me from all this other stuff. It was like wherever I seen a gap in my heart that could not be filled, like psychologically, scientifically, or even emotionally, I knew that spiritually I had to connect something in there to bridge the gap. And it was like my eyes opened up, right? So what you don't see right now is what I see is that there are millions of young people who are raising themselves in this particular climate, and they don't have the tools that you have. And what God has done is he sent you to the military for the discipline, right? He's given you guys around you and aunties and cousins that he encountered you with so you can be vulnerable. And then last but not least, he's giving you a voice and a physique that can come in and wow rooms, because that's what you look like when you walk in. So I want you to start leaning to these gifts that the Lord is giving you, and I want you to honor your journey, because I also see in my heart and my head, although you have done well, you have never made it to the place that you want to be. And so here's the thing. You've been asking God, what is my voice? Who am I supposed to speak to? The people that you are to speak to are the very people that you were. And so what I see coming from you, there will be a book that comes out of you. There will be video vlogs that come out of you. There will be high school students that are going to be under your wing. There are going to be college students that you're going to speak to. There are government projects. There are government contracts that have your name on it because of your military background. Here's the thing. I want you to put this stuff on paper, man. And in 12 to 16 months, I want you to look at that opportunity that you have. And notice I call it an opportunity. Look at the opportunity that you have. The adoption space has paid me millions of dollars, because guess what? I believe if it get on my plate, it got to get ate. And I approach every single moment like it owes me something. And this moment owes you something, man. So don't let it be your demise. Let it be your prospering place, right? Because every pain desires some prospering to it. They owe you a check for what you've been through. Make sure that your grandkids and your children's children get blessed for what you endure. I don't know your name, but I'm proud to meet you. What's your name? Hey, make sure you send me an offer when you get all that stuff I said. Praise God. Y'all make some noise for this amazing panel. Thank you, Shanti Dodge, for this amazing opportunity. Flat out.
Yo, hello. All right, y'all. Once again, give me that mic. That mic better. Let me see that mic. I'm funny style with these mics. Okay. All right. Once again, Dr. King, J. Barnett, Willie Moore Jr., Marquis Hill, Love Yourself. Everybody stand up. These men poured their heart and souls into this. Redefining manhood for mental resilience. This has been such an inspiring day. Again, I want to thank the Silence of Shame staff. We got to thank all of our vendors. We have to thank all of our volunteers. Give it up for our volunteers who always rock with us. We couldn't do it without you. All the participants, please make sure you're following Silence of Shame on Instagram at Silence of Shame. Again, if you want to make donations to the organization, you can go to www.silencetheshame.com. We are a 501c3 coming up on the end of the year, so it will be a nice write-off. But seriously, from the bottom of our heart, thank you again for supporting My Life is a Gift. Thank you, Tanya. Just thank you, everyone. And I'll see if Nia has any. Okay. Just want to make sure my announcements are good. Any more announcements? Anything we need to know? All right, and please, this is important, y'all, because this is how we get our outcomes. We need you to look at the screen, get your camera phones out. It's a 3-minute survey for a chance to win a $50 gift card, but we need surveys completed so we can do, event success and outcomes and measurements and so forth. So thank you again. Please get home safe. Traveling mercies for anyone traveling back out of town as well as in town. Thank you.
3, 2, 1.
I think it's time that we start the conversation and silence the shame.
Silence the shame.
Silence the shame. Silence is the difference between treatment or pain, life or death.
Silence the shame.
Speak up now and silence.
Silence
the shame.